Hey there, friendlies. How's everybody doing? I do not require these on right now. So, I believe we're on time, which is nice. I believe I have to say hi to a few people who are hanging in the side chat, which is also nice. But before I do all of that, I'm going to say, hold on. Is that a bit better? Yeah, that's better. Uh, so, um, welcome to the Babies Blades on Bushcraft Livestream for the 12th of November, where we got beverages, we got blades up there somewhere, and we may discuss some bushcrafty stuff. Tonight's reading is uh, from Finding Quest from this magazine. This is the November/December edition of Canadian Geographic Magazine. The reason we're talking about that is because the Royal Canadian Geographic Society went on an expedition to find Shackleton's last ship. And they found it just off the coast of Newfoundland. But we'll talk about that later. Before we start the show, I just want to do the usual housekeeping. That's the part where I say, "Hey, if you're, excuse me, if you're watching us, time shifted to tomorrow or next week or next month or whatever. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for hanging with us. After the fact, thanks for the comments I sometimes see popping up in the doobly-doo. I know that after the fact, you can't really participate in the side chat, but it still warms the cockles of my heart that you are hanging with us even after the fact. Okay. So if you love what's going on at any point tonight, then I invite you to drop me a smiley thumb. If you kind of hate what's going on at any point, that's okay. Frowny thumb works just well. And if you'd like to take a more active role in supporting the channel and keeping the lights on, as so many in the side chat here already have, then excuse me, I invite you to join button wherever YouTube has it now. You do a right click, you open that in another tab, and you'll see that there are 2 tiers of membership available to you for hard-earned cash and a little bit of information about what each of those tiers will get you for said cash. I'm gonna take a sip of tea because I'm having some real trouble tonight. Tea is a good drink. So, no news tonight as such, just because I got a short little reading from this magazine, and then I want to talk about Shackleton. I want to talk about his ships and all that stuff. But first, let's check out who's been hanging with me from the get-go on this night of nights. This night of nights. So first off, like just as I sort of hit the post for the scheduled live stream, Christy popped in first. Christy is a channel hero, as you can tell by the little icon next to her name. And then also at 8:30, so I don't know, maybe they were racing to see who was first. David Evans popped in to say hi. David is a channel hero and a channel mod. So my usual blah 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 about be polite or he'll drop the hammer on you. Then Jim from SV Raven Flintlock popped in 1 minute later to say hi. I'm not entirely sure if he's still hanging with us or if he's jumping in the car. So I'm not sure. Jim thought we were going to talk about shacks. Shackleton had a shack or two in his time. Destiny is running an errand, but she'll be watching while she drives. All right, Destiny, that's fine by me. Destiny is also a channel hero, by the way, as you can tell by that beautiful little icon that I worked so hard to design right next to her name. Okay, we got everyone just sort of saying hi to one another. Mark Davidson popping in. How's it going, Mark? Nice to see your name in my side chat. You popping in at 8:44. So these are all sort of the early arrivers, the early birds. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. Shawnee popping in at 8:52. I'm thinking this is going to be good. I'll explain to you why I suddenly want to talk about Shackleton. Okay, but I want to say hi to everyone who's. Hey, there's Susie Q. Hi, Susie. How are you doing on this fine evening? There's Sev popping in, like not at 9:30 or whatever? Actually, no, you're not usually a late arriver. Um, Country boy, how's it going, country boy? He's saying hi to everyone. Back to hey, there's Beto. Just give me 1 second to check one little thing. That's fine. I've already taken that pill. Saying hi, there's Beto is saying hi to everyone. Mr. Trucker, still trucking and listening. Don't forget today is Marcus's birthday. Marcus ain't on yet, but when he comes on, everybody say happy birthday to Marcus, all right? And Christy is doing the God's good work by telling everyone to hit that thumbs up. What do I got right now? I have 7 thumbs ups and 17 watching. So for those of you what ain't done yet, I advise you to just hold on 1 second here. I'm just double checking a tech thing. Hello. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but anyway, I'll take that off. I don't like hearing myself coming back. That's something I should probably have to turn off. It's a setting. I don't know. Excuse me. Uh, Russell is here. What did you miss? Bird sounds? Okay, cool. Yeah, you you popped in at 9:03, so and I was very slightly late today. So Beto's saying hi to me. Hi to Beto. Has Marcus joined yet? Because Destiny's saying happy birthday, but I don't think Marcus is here yet. Well, I'm a little late, so maybe oh, there he is. Happy birthday, Marcus. Everyone say happy birthday to Marcus. All at once. Everybody, all together now. Excuse me. Marcus, hope you're having a fabulous birthday. I'm not loving this at all. Off-grid recon in the house. How's it going, off-grid? How are you doing tonight? I hope all is well. Off-grid is also telling everyone to hit that thumbs up. Let me just go and reload the YouTube page. And I now have 15 watching, 15 thumbs up. So we've lost 2 watchers, but gained like 8 thumbs up. So I guess that's an okay trade-off. Shawnee, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. I mean, I don't think I'm really sick anymore at all. I don't know what's going on here. It ain't making me happy though. Just give me a second. I'll drink some water. Maybe it's the nefarious effects of me getting my flu shot today. Which one is? I can probably take this stupid thing off now. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm dying of a flu shot. But anyway, but no, this is something new. I've been feeling much better. Much better. Homie in the house. Homie of the cool knives and stuff. I'm all right. I've got this wicked cough that seems to be like I didn't have it earlier today. So it's just showing up in time for my live stream to embarrass me in front of all my friends. Stupidness. Well, 18 degrees Celsius wherever Beto is. What is it today? It was not 18 here. Let me tell you, it wasn't that cold actually. I mean, right now it is 7. Today, right now it's 1 degree. Today's high was 7 and low was 0. So I mean, it ain't bad, but it ain't great. Okay, people saying happy birthday to Marcus. I sound fantastic. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you. It's the magical pairing of this radio quality microphone with the dulcet tones of my velvet voice. I feel that, I missed my calling. I should have gone into radio, new age music radio, playing the new age sounds of the Bay Area on Hearts of Space. Russell has a weird cough some days. Yeah, I don't know. I just pick it up every now and again too. I'm trying not to mess around too much with this because I know it drives Russell crazy. It makes that sound because I've got wicked dry skin on my hands, by the way. David got both flu and COVID. I would have loved to have gotten both at the same time, but we went to the company I work for pays to have everyone vaccinated and their families if you want to, but they were only doing flu, so I still have to make a Click Santé appointment to get the Rona shot. Well, you know what? I knew 3 people who got COVID right before I got sick, so I was sure that's what I had, but I tested negative, and I had my tests were not passé date, whatever that is. They were not like past their best before date or anything. So I don't know what it was. Oh, there's an excellent question. Marcus, what is your birthday? Ah, you know what I forgot to do, guys? I forgot to turn that off again. Ah, Destiny's was it Destiny or Shawnee? Which of you wanted me to get rid of that? Just like it's never gonna go away. Birthday dessert. Hey, there's Grace. How's it going, Grace? Oof, Marcel too? Oh, just popping in. All right, well, thanks for popping in. Yeah, exactly. Rain Dance Radio. Welcome to Tuesday. On this Tuesday, we're going to discuss music for bushcrafting too. The acoustic sounds of Gordon Lightfoot, Bruce Coburn, James Blunt, and maybe a little bit of Spirit of the West. John Prine. All the classics. Plus the sound of a campfire, the smell of wood smoke, and above you, the northern lights crackling and waving their way through the night. I should like you guys know I'm dying to do a podcast, right? You guys know that I'm dying to do an outdoorsy podcast. But like for my maybe if I ever get the time and money to do it, like I should do just a 5-episode pilot of that kind of cheesy, like, "Hi, friends," just as a joke. Oh, Sam's had their first snow today. Not much is left. Most of it's already melted. Yeah, it's gonna be like that a few times before before it's here to stay for sure. But yeah, that's nice. Kristen saying hi to Marcel. Who we got now? Chainsaw Canuck, Edmonton, still snow-free. Montreal too. Welcome, by the way. Nice to see you, Chainsaw Canuck. I haven't been to Edmonton since last August. But I think you guys will get snow before us because you're further north than we are. I don't know how it happens in Edmonton, but around here we'll get a few snowfalls that are like a dusting and it goes away. Then like a few centimeters and it goes away. And then like just after Christmas, we'll get this huge dump kind of thing. When I was a kid, we used to get a huge dump right at the start of December, but I just don't know what's going on. David had chicken burgers. We had pho tonight. You know that Vietnamese soup? Chicken and veggie pho. So delish. Russell wishes he could eat ice cream like he used to. I also wish I could eat ice cream like I used to. When the missus and I were first together, man, and we were working on our feet all the time, so we were both whip thin. Date night for us was, like, we would go and buy a cake at Provigo or wherever, and, like a 500 ml or 1 liter of pop each. Just watch a few movies and just chow down on all that. Nowadays, you know, you lick the top of a piece of cake and you pork out, but man, because we were on our feet all the time. Uh, Shawnee loves the idea of chicken burgers. What, you've never heard of that? What? Yeah, chicken dumpling soup. So at lunch today at the day job, um, I went to the bistro and I had, like, fried veggie dumplings with veggie, sushi, but the sushi was terrible. Like, n what happens when you get someone who doesn't really make sushi, make the sushi, you know? Everything is sort of like it's not holding together very well, or the flavors just weren't gelling and, you know. Oh, Marcus ate so much that he didn't have any dessert. Didn't want any you gotta have some cake on your birthday, man. Alright, Destiny's home and on the laptop. Nice to see you, Destiny. Everyone's saying hi. Canadian is better late than never. Canadian put a video on his channel recently of him just kicking back at his fire pit, which made me envious because as you guys know, Montreal equals fire ban. No, not fire ban, but can't burn solid. I I actually muted myself in time that time. So, hold on, I'm just catching up. Homie Omi liked the talk on the Axis last week. You were listening but couldn't respond. And that's fine. You know, what I will do if I'm listening to someone, but I'm washing dishes or doing or busier or whatever, just to show them that I'm still kicking back is every now and again in the side chat, I'll just drop a period, just boop, so that they know that I'm still there. I don't know where I got that from. I think Mallory had something to do with that. Someone was doing that on Mallory's live streams, and she started doing it. Um, Destiny was in and out of Shawnee's live. I completely missed it. I'm gonna, watch it after the fact. Sorry. I felt pretty bad about that. That was at the cabin, okay. Oh, cabin too. All these things I don't have. Hey, look who's here, Doctor Sharp in the house. Yeah, no, I was you see, the thing is, Doctor Sharp, I have a deathly, allergy to, what do I call it? Fatty fish, oily fish, the poisson gras, so, like, salmon and trout and stuff like that. So, there's only one sushi place we can order from here, because they know what because we've been ordering from them for a long time, and they know us. Jesse's got a fish allergy, different knife, different cutting board, and, I order some veggie sushi, and because it comes from an actual sushi place, it's delicious. But when people are just trying to make veggie sushi, they're like, "Well, I'll just, you know, julienne some cucumber and wrap it in rice," and you gotta know sushi to be able to especially to do, like, veggie sushi delicious. You know what I'm saying? Um Hold on, I just missed something. Everything jumped. Ah, out of town for the night. It's a long story. I have to run. My Uber driver's here. All right, see you later, Marcel. Thanks for popping in. So, I'm gonna do the reading because it's gonna start off a whole conversation that I wanna have. Tonight we're talking about Shackleton. Why are we talking about Shackleton? Because Shackleton is big right now, right? And I think it was 2022 they found the Endurance. This year, or well, I guess 9 months ago, considering how long it takes a story to go from writing to in a magazine. They found the last ship that Shackleton sailed on, okay, and that was the Quest. Um, and in celebration of the finding of Shackleton's ship or in commemoration of his voyage on the Endurance, Lego is releasing a set of the Endurance on the 29th of November that I desperately want, but it's like $350, which is equal to what I just spent on getting some, stage quality earplug. So I'm not gonna be able to spend it, but, I love Shackleton. I love the explorers, like, the guys who opened up the Canadian North, the guys who, that's like David Thompson, all these guys, Hearn, all these dudes, and Shackleton, in a lot of ways, was the bookend to the age of exploration. He was the last of the great explorers, and unlike guys like Scott and so many, the only person who ever died on a Shackleton-led expedition was Shackleton, right? Um, and he died on the quest in South Georgia of a heart attack. Didn't even get to start his last expedition in earnest, uh, so to speak. But like Shackleton was late enough that you're almost at the part where you're missing the whole game, right? If you look at when the explorers who opened up the Canadian North were doing it, for instance, right? Like Shackleton is in the 20th century. I mean, he was born before the 20th century, right? He was born in like 1874 in Leitrim, Kildare, somewhere in Ireland, right? Moved to England when he was 10. Now he was Anglo-Irish, right? So he was from one of the I guess colonizer families. But grew up in England. So in 1901, he leaves on the Discovery. That's the expedition that Robert Falcon Scott was leading. He was heading to Antarctica. So during that expedition, they had all this science stuff with them. Um, yeah, they were heading for the pole, but they were also doing all kinds of science, right? Um, they they weren't really doing a serious push to the pole, to be honest. They did get, um, they got the record for getting the furthest south to that point. Okay, so we're talking 1901 to 1903 here. Um, but they didn't make it to the pole. They lost all 22 of the sled dogs they brought because they brought the wrong food, and they went rotten, and the dogs had nothing to eat, and blah blah blah. Excuse me. Scott, Shackleton, and one other guy were part of like this three-man push, overland push to see how far south they could get. Um, all three of them got sick. They got snow blindness. They got scurvy. They got frostbite. And in fact, uh, Scott, sorry, Scott sent Shackleton home on sick leave, which Shackleton found, um, frankly, mortifying. So his expedition was over. Um, so then he kicked around land, and when he wasn't on expeditions, he did a lot of like the lecture circuit. He wrote a book about the excuse me, the Discovery expedition, I believe. Him and Scott in public got along fine, but in private, it seems that not all was well between them. Something about that expedition where Scott sent him home. Uh, but there's no, like, proof of any of that. It's just there's conjecture there. Anyway, so look, in 1907, he gets another ship that well, in 1907, he leaves on another expedition on a ship called the Nimrod. So, this is one where Shackleton is actually in charge, okay? But if you look at this guy's age, right, 1874 he's born, and in 1907 he's in command of an expedition to Antarctica, right? I'm 52, and I ain't been in charge of an expedition anywhere. So, Shackleton makes me feel kind of bad about myself, but whatever. So this time he was making a push for the pole. He didn't make it. They got to about 180 kilometers from the South Pole, from the geographical South Pole. One of his three-man teams did get to the magnetic South Pole. They did some good science. They climbed a mountain, stuff like that. They went home heroes. Terrific. Um, so that's a win. So then he's back to doing the lecture circuit and everything. Here's the thing: this guy is always fundraising for expeditions, which means he's always like one step ahead of his, the debt guys, right? Um, so he builds up money for another expedition. So he he missed out on getting to the South Pole because Amundsen from Norway, Roald Amundsen, he actually got there, beating. Oh, I just blanked. I think was it Scott who was running for the pole at the same time. Anyways, he beat a big name British explorer. Uh, Pole was done. So Shackleton, he's like, "What do we do?" Well, he wants to cross Antarctica because no one has crossed the continent yet. So, um, the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, that's the big one. That's the one he's famous for. That's the Endurance, right? He got Endurance. On his expedition, he had a second ship called the Aurora, which went to where. So the idea was that they would land here in the Weddell Sea, hit land, cross Antarctica to I don't remember what because I didn't do a lot of reading before doing this, right? I just love Shackleton. I don't have like a bunch of notes here. But so to cross to where the Aurora was, and what Aurora did was it dropped all these supply dumps. Okay. So excuse me. Sorry. Uh, I mean, look, this one's the stuff of legend, right? They get stuck in pack ice on the Weddell Sea. They're stuck for what is it? Whatever it is, 9 months until the ship finally buckles and starts to sink. They live on a couple of ice floes for 2 months, whatever. Then everything starts breaking up, so they jump in boats and make a break for Elephant Island. They get to Elephant Island. You can't live on Elephant Island. There's no food. It's not fit for purpose if you are looking to survive. So Shackleton and 5 men get into one of their lifeboats, build it up good, and they just go for South Georgia, which is an epic journey. It took I don't remember. They had like 4 weeks of victuals and stuff. They finally get to South Georgia. They land on the wrong side of the island because of huge seas. Um, South Georgia is like on one side there's a whaling station, and then there's all this impenetrable interior, and then they landed on that side. So Shackleton takes 2 of the guys, and they do this like 50 odd kilometer hike that takes them whatever 36 hours or something. I don't quite remember before they end up on this whaling station. They wander out of the woods, surprise the hell out of the poor guys in the whaling station. Immediately send help for these guys, then go and get the other guys. Then head for home, um, and he's right back to the talking circuit. Now here's the thing: just crossing the island was something epic. The next, so that's what was 1916, I think. I think it was 1916. Um, and the next person to successfully climb through that mountain, taking essentially the same course as Shackleton did, was like 1955. You know, um, so Shackleton is not sure what he wants to do at this point. I mean, he can only do the lecture circuit for a certain amount of time before he's like, "I am done. I need to go sailing." And so he bought another ship. This one was the Quest, much smaller ship than Endurance. Little guy, about 37 meters long, I think. And it was a ship built for the sealing and fishing industries, essentially. With a, I believe it was Norwegian. It was named something else, named for something. He named it the Quest. Wanted to come to northern Canada. The government of Canada was gonna, partly fund his mission, then didn't for some reason. So he's like, "We'll go back to Antarctica." Why? Maybe we'll circumnavigate it, check out some of the islands. Like, it was kind of he just wanted to go, right? And he had creditors up his arse probably, if I remember correctly. So that's what the expedition was gonna be, and they just went. Um, so they go to South Georgia again. South Georgia is, it's big with Antarctic exploration guys, right? Because it's a good station that you can stage from to make your last push. Because look, if you're heading for Antarctica at this time, it's 10 days sail from the bottom of Argentina or South Africa, right? It's not close, and you're going through a part of the ocean. That ocean just goes because there's nothing to stop it. So it's fast and it's furious and it's dangerous as hell. In fact, when these guys were sailing in their little, um, whatever it was, 20-foot, 50-foot, 20-foot lifeboat to try and get to safety, being tossed and turned, um, like a 500-ton steamer went to the bottom of the ocean in that same storm, you know. But anyways, they're in South Georgia. He had what they think was a heart attack, um, in or almost at Buenos Aires, but he didn't get treatment for it. Uh, so he's there in South Georgia. He's not feeling well. Called the doctor in. The doctor said, "Well, you should probably stop drinking so much, and you need to take it easy." And later that night, he died. It was early January, I think the 4th of January, 1922. He died, and he's like the only man to have died on one of his expeditions. And before leaving England, he was like, "This shall be my swan song." Not expecting to die, but expecting it to be his last. 'Cause he was, 1874 to 1922. He not everyone made it to 90 at that time. So, you know, they tried to do some sort of expedition, but ended up sort of, running for home anyway. The ship was sold and knocked around a bit. It was used for sealing a lot. It was used, there was another British expedition. I don't quite remember where, but there was another group. It was like a survey expedition, if I remember correctly, but it did most of its time just sort of sealing and then and then fishing, sealing and then fishing. And in after the Second World War, I think it was completely refitted. It was elongated, but, it was a wooden ship, and over the years, it was heavily used up, like, to the point where, when it was leaving port, sometimes people would, like, sort of see it, like, "Is that thing gonna stay afloat?" And finally, in 1962, it's off the coast of Newfoundland, um, sealing. The ice came in, the ship started to buckle. It had already been leaking on the entire trip. They had the pumps going all the time to keep this thing afloat. And there was a crack, and water just started pouring in, and they're like, "Nope, we ain't gonna make it." It was a very orderly abandoned ship. They took their valuables. Um, there were other ships around because it was part of, like, a sealing flotilla. Nobody died, everyone got off with their stuff. They went to the bottom with its hold full of sealskins. uh, and there it's at, and they weren't sure if the record of its coordinates when it went down were absolutely accurate or not. There's this guy, Antoine Normandin, who, worked he's a fellow of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. He's a mathematician. He, has experience doing, photography from airplanes, and he just did the math and found where he was absolutely sure it was. He went to Norway, looked at some, ship's records. Um, they used kind of an early analog to GPS. I mean, obviously, there were no satellites, but they had machines and they took readings so that you could find out where you were even if it was on a cloudy day. Like, you weren't using the visual instruments. And he sort of narrowed it down to a 24 nautical mile square off the coast of Newfoundland. Um, they To find it, they were using this drag this sensor on a drag line. They He worked it out to like 17 lines of back and forth with the ship dragging this thing. Found it on line 11, I think. And that's the part I wanted to start with, was the reading of the moment they found this ship. Um, Shortly before 6 p.m., as Odyssey finishes its long, wide turn into the seventh line, I asked Normandin how he's feeling, partly out of journalistic obligation and partly out of genuine concern. He exhales, runs his hands through his hair, steeples his fingers against his forehead. I just want this to be over. Eventually, he heads to the mess for a change of scenery, and Geiger comes to take his place. We're joking around in a state of delirium when Geiger suddenly leaps out of his chair toward the monitor. "What's that? That's it," he shouts. "A jarring anomaly has appeared on the featureless orange ticker tape of the sonar image. About the size and shape of a grain of rice, with a shadow like a spear." Geiger texts Normandin. "Are you seeing this?" Then, not content to wait for an answer, he goes to confer with the team in the mess. Normandin rushes to wake Mearns. Mearns is the captain, the American captain. I scramble below decks to wake Sarah Walsh. These are all people who are on the expedition, the Royal Canadian Geographical Society expedition. He estimates it measures about 38 meters long. Quest was 37 meters. Odyssey gets lined up for another pass, and this time, with the towfish flying at a better angle and tuned to a higher resolution, it's unmistakable. It's a ship sitting upright on the seabed. But we can see of its features perfectly match those of Quest. Her prominent bow, her large aluminium wheelhouse, still attached. The foremast lies perpendicular to the hull, likely ripped off by the force of the water moving through the rigging as she sank to the bottom. Geiger and Normandin are incandescent. So, could you imagine the feeling of, like, discovering this ship that's been lying in the lonely, frigid depths since 1962? Or, like, when those guys, the other expedition, found, um, Endurance. It's been sitting there under the frigid waters for forever, you know? So there she is sitting on the bottom. That's not, a light shadow, right? That's a sonar shadow. And, like, these ships, when you discover them, it's like these aren't just these aren't just ships. These are the stories that we are told suddenly made manifest. You know, he died on that ship. He sailed on that ship. That ship rocked its way to Antarctica and back. It was poorly designed for that kind of journey. It rolled. It was falling apart for half of its life. But I just think, like, such a lonely, sad little ship sitting down there completely abandoned. Nobody around, in the dark, in the cold. Endurance sitting there, same deal. Erebus, all these ships, ships that were wrecked by pack ice in the Canadian North, Antarctica. sealing ships about the size of Quest or bigger, because even Quest was pretty small for a sealing ship. Sealing, by the way, like seals, right? Like all these ships sitting there at the bottom of the ocean with, their stories are over. They're just dark little shapes in a dark, huge ocean. It's kinda sad, you know? These ships are famous, and their names are gonna live forever, and fat lot of good that does the poor thing sitting at the bottom of the ocean, slowly dissolving. Titanic is slowly disappearing, right? Because there are algae or bacteria, I guess, that specialize in eating the metal away. One day they're all gonna be gone. Nothing but dust on the seafloor. So, I mean, I may have taken up a lot of time with that reading and discussion, but man, Shackleton is cool. He's cool. Not many guys can say they never lost a man on an expedition. I mean, back in the day. I guess even today, you lose a man on a teammate, because it's not always just men anymore. But Shackleton and his guys had to shoot the ship's cat because when the ship went down, they thought this cat will never make it. They had to shoot all the dogs. They ended up eating some of the dogs. It's like phew. These are stories of epic endurance, of like putting your shoulder to the grindstone of nature, of ice, of extreme locations. Like, it makes me wonder, like, are we made of that kinda stuff anymore? Some people are. I mean, there are still explorers going out and doing crazy stuff, or, like, long haul stuff, right? There's Mario Rigby, I think he's originally, Nigerian or, African, anyways. He's a Canadian citizen now, and this guy walks, man. Like, he crossed Africa, he walked across the Middle East, that's his thing. He also does paddling and stuff, but his thing is, he gets funding for these massive trips. Hold on. Canadian says, "I missed the hot tub short. Good thing you'd have been super." No, I saw the hot tub short. I saw that. Um, Dr. Sharp says, "Oh, man, that bad of an analogy does not sound good." No, no, it's dangerous, and I've almost been put under by it twice now. So I'm very careful. It's not all, you know, seaborne food. It's specifically the oily fish. Um, so that's your salmon, your trout, like all the pink stuff, shark, stuff like that. Russell says, "Sushi takes so long to make. I find it just buy some salmon and eat it sashimi style with soy sauce and wasabi. It's a decent fix." Yeah, I can't really go buying the salmon and eating it like that. Destiny loves Shackleton as well. We read about his attempt at the pole. Such an interesting man. And the ad for the crew members of Endurance is iconic. Yeah. Looking for, the hell was it? I don't think there's any of the, there's a large spread about Quest and about, here's a timeline of the Quest. But I mean, I don't want to, like, no, I thought there might have been a picture of the advert that he, anyway. Um, there was, I don't know if there still is, maybe it was still limited edition. There was a blended scotch called the Shackleton that was put out, and I almost bought it because I thought it was like a reconstruction of what the whiskey was. When he was doing his trips, and he always had whiskey on board. But then I read on the back of the box that was like an homage to that era of it. I was like, it's not expensive, but I ain't falling for it. If it was we've reverse engineered what the whiskey was, I would have been all about that because one of the reasons I like this King George so much is that it's a reconstruction of what whiskey was like when King George V was the king. Using juice that was available then. But yeah. Well, the thing about Amundsen is that he was a lot more like whenever Scott and all these guys went on expeditions, they're being sent by many of them were sent by um, the Royal the Royal Society, sorry, right? So they had science that they had to do. Whereas Amundsen, he's like, "We're going to the pole," and they just went. You know, on these British expeditions, like at one, they had a car along to see if it would drive across the ice. Of course, it died and then sank. All kinds of like scientific stuff they had to do, which would slow them down and made sure that none of these guys were going to beat Amundsen to the pole. Amundsen was a lot more, look, bit of a jerk, right? But yeah, very interesting dude. In fact, he met his end in the north, I believe, during a search effort. Hi, good Mike in the house. We are not talking about Florida tonight, Mike. We're talking about Antarctica, which is a little colder. How are you doing tonight? Everyone's saying hi. Destiny says that Shackleton was a man of his time, whereas Edmonton thought outside the box of consciousness towards nature at that time. Emerson was an interesting guy. Look, they were both interesting guys, right? Anyone who undertakes this kind of adventure is going to be an interesting guy. But some guys are like Royal Navy men, and that comes with a whole box of specific worldview. Royal Navy men have died on expeditions a lot. I'm thinking specifically of like the Canadian North, where Royal Navy philosophy has ended more expeditions than have been successful, Um, and it's only when guys like Hearn or whoever abandon that philosophy and start thinking like and getting advice from like the native population, that's when they started succeeding. Um, but yeah, apparently Russell is finding the audio warbly. Do not know. Dr. Sharp says the 1880s to 1920s are stories of people with colorful characters bridging the old world ways and the new. Absolutely. And it's funny because on Shackleton's, um, I guess, the endurance expedition, I'm thinking, um, World War One was breaking out, right? And he's like, should we do the Royal Navy stuff? And Lord of the Admiralty, who, by the way, was Churchill at that point, said, no, go. Explore, discover, because it was still glorying king and country, but in a different way, kind of thing. But World War One started with horse chargers and ended with trenches full of gas. Right, the world fundamentally changed in the first 2 decades of the 20th century. Right, at the outbreak of the First World War, France was still wearing blue and red into battle, right? Nobody was wearing helmets. Well, I mean, the Germans had these the pointy helmets, right? Which were leather, right? Next thing you know, the British make these things called tanks. You've got heavy ass fire from like machine guns just cutting people to bits. You've got airplanes, dirigibles, gas, dreadnoughts. It's like sink the age of sail, and ships become floating cities with huge guns on them. The world changed, and so that's why I think that Dr. Sharp's comment here, which I guess I took off screen, it's part of the world they were living in as well. These guys were hard-bitten men, um, who strove against nature, but behind them and around them, the world was shedding its old self, and look at how many empires ended in the First World War. Like, how many parts of the world went from imperial to republics, right? And we have this idea that a republic is more modern than a monarchy, but it's not true. I mean, the world's first republic, well, the first continually running republic was Iceland, and it's been doing it for way over a millennium, right? But anyways, it's just like, yeah, you're right, and the whole world was doing that. Um, Hi, good Mike says another freaking storm brewing in the Gulf of Mexico. Yep, so I heard. Let's just hope that you guys get some peace and quiet. Um, I don't know what Russell is saying to David, but anyway. This is Mike saying they're not sure yet if it's gonna make landfall. Add. Now? Or am I just really late? Oh, I'm just really late. Sorry, guys. I'm 20 minutes late because I was like, beep, 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 Shackleton, Edmonton, Endurance, Quest. And now Mike's got to go listen to this song. We'll be back. All right, fair enough. Florida guy like me, straight out of Gainesville. David is asking a very important question. If Marcus has his own birthday lantern, do you? Hi, good. Mike is asking if Shackleton was in Antarctica or the North Pole. He was in Antarctica. In fact, uh, they shipped his body home from South Georgia, and then his wife said, "No, take him back and bury him there, and that's where he would want to be buried." So, and like this is at a time when he couldn't just like fly. You couldn't just jump on a jet plane, right? You had to sail for months to get from the UK to South Georgia. Yeah, Mike, he almost did one expedition to the Canadian Arctic, but the government pulled his funding at the last minute, so he turned around and went down south for one last time. And it was interesting, like, sailing out of England and saying, "This shall be my swan song. This is my last trip out." Fully expecting to retire at the end of it, not to die while he was in a part of the world he clearly loved, actually. So, destiny. I like the mindset of Amundsen. I want something, South Pole. Who knows the most about this place or his goal in life? Oh, yes, Indigenous. Let's go talk to them first. Yeah, he he was all about not wasting your time with big machines, you know, not wasting your time with all the stuff that the Royal Society always saddled its explorers with, but just skis, right? Maybe a dog sled, but just like anything that moves you fast. Oh, I caught up with this. Have I actually caught up with the chat? Have I? Have I actually caught up with the chat? No, of course not. um, like the story of To Build a Fire by Jack London, I believe. Taking notes. Yeah. Shackleton's mindset, and Scott's, by the way, too, right? And the guys who opened up the Canadian North as well until they learned better, you know? Follow the orders of those who roll out the money. Bring all the experiments and all the whatever that they want you to, for sure. Disney said that Kenneth Branagh's movie Shackleton is worth the watch. I did not even know he did one. Oh, wait a minute. Was this relatively recent? Because I like, a lot of people were trying to bring Shackleton's stuff out around, I guess, the anniversary of his death in, like, 2022. I think so. It was either him or Scott that they found some whiskey that was left behind. Absolutely. Well, that's why I thought that the Shackleton whiskey that was recently sold might have been, like, reverse engineered, right? Because you can do that. You can stick a needle in a bottle of whiskey or wine, whiskey, because wine, it's a whole different, more delicate game, but and you can kinda like, "Okay, we can get this. We can approximate this flavor. We can." I think considering what was open back then, we could probably make a blend that'll approximate this. 'Cause one thing that is very different about whiskey than wine is that when you bottle wine, you can still age. When you bottle whiskey, it hibernates. It does not change. You can have like, if this bottle this is a 5-year-old. What that means is it was in a barrel, well, a cask is the proper term, for 5 years. If I keep this bottle for 20 years and I do not open it, it's still a 5-year-old whiskey. It's not gonna change. Wine is volatile as hell. David Evans, "My history sucks. Who tried to find the Northwest Passage?" Everybody tried to find the Northwest Passage. Everybody. Excuse me. I do not know why I've got all this coughing happening. I'm wondering, I think, like, I'm just gonna look it up because I think you're thinking of Franklin. Franklin's the most, um, famous one because epic disaster, possible cannibalism, death, ships at the bottom of the ocean, um, and then, like, just London society went crazy. So, like, Franklin is probably the one you're thinking about, but if I look it up, I was gonna look it up, right? I don't know why I was gonna look it up, but I'll do it. Um, I just wanna see if there's a list somewhere of everyone who's tried to find the Northwest because everybody was looking for the Northwest Passage for a long time. Um, there's Franklin, there's Franklin. In 2025, a small ship Arctic cruise will sail the Northwest Passage. Shut up. Uh, Northwest Passage expedition has captivated explorers and the public alike, with many expeditions attempting to chart this unforgiving route. Legacy of exploration continues. Blah, blah, blah. I guess nobody as famous as Franklin did it, and Franklin is probably so famous because it was such an epic and very British disaster. Because like what Destiny was talking about, I mean, Franklin was exactly what we're talking about here. It's like, this is the way we do it in Blighty, and this is the way you die somewhere else. Hi, good Mike says, sad story. Cave diving is extremely dangerous in Florida. An 18-year-old kid went down into Eagle's Nest sinkhole cave. He ran out of oxygen, used a knife, carved "I love you, mom and dad" on his oxygen tank. Yeah, I would not do cave diving. First of all, 'cause I'm a coward. And yeah, I would hate to run out of oxygen or, accidentally go into, like, a depression that's full of a toxic gas, right? There's a lot of that in caving for sure. Yeah, Royal Navy men, perfect description of Shackleton. Maybe more so of Franklin, you know, because Franklin did, he died of British stupidity, essentially. That makes it sound like I'm dissing the country, but I'm dissing that sort of colonial mindset of the British Navy in the centuries before the 20th century, and even the early part of the 20th, really, right? David, never mind, it was Franklin. Yeah, that's what I thought. Um, Jim, starting on his half-hour drive home. We're talking Shackleton tonight. Yes, it's Shackleton. How good Mike says. World War One was the industrialization of warfare, and shell shock became a new horror for soldiers. Absolutely, absolutely. The years 1914 to 1918 were. I don't want to say global because there were parts of the globe that weren't fighting, but pan continental trauma. You know, this country lost a significant percentage of its population in the First World War, and at that point, we were only like a country of, I believe, 8 million people. You know, up, Celsius out as always. But as always, good night. I know that you have an early morning, so sleep well, Mister. David is. What is everyone drinking tonight? And oh yeah, it's 10 o'clock. Holy schnitzel. Um, I was gonna do Glenlivet at 12, but it's too late. I'll do it anyway. Why am I doing Glenlivet 12? I don't know. This is not a special bottle in any. A lot of people like this, but um, it's very pedestrian, right? It's I think 40%. Is it 40 or is it 43? 40% alcohol by volume. It's definitely caramel colored. It's definitely chill filtered. But I was looking for something easy, an easy jam tonight, and I figured that when I didn't see Al's name in the side chat, I was like, okay, we're not gonna do the king. We're gonna do the king. Gross. I just let it breathe a little bit. This bottle's been open for months, so I don't necessarily have to do the minute in a glass per year in the cask. Destiny's having Pellegrino on ice. Hey, Zach Fudge, I was thinking about you recently, Zach, and I don't remember why. It was either because the words "All Hail the Ale" popped into my head for no reason, or I think I was thinking about Fallout 76, but then I wasn't sure if it was you who liked Fallout 76. Anyways, I haven't seen you in a minute. It's nice to see you again. I hope you're having a good night, and I hope the weather is treating you well. Country Boy's having a Glenfiddich 12-year-old single malt. That's a pretty good choice. It's also pedestrian, but it's funny 'cause, um, I do this thing where every now and again I do, like, a blind pour of a few Glencairns, but, like, I'll put a colored dot on the bottom to represent, 3 different bottles, and that Glenfiddich 12, when you're tasting with your tongue and not your eyes, it's a beautiful dram. It really is. Nothing special about it in terms of stats, but it just comes together really well. Um, Russell's having cheap scotch. I've never heard of such a thing. You? Heck with Mike says that Canadian soldiers were the first victims of the poison gas attacks during World War One. I have read the same thing. World War One is kind of my thing. When I was working at Reader's Digest, I worked with a history major who was all about the Second World War. World War One looms heavier in Canada's consciousness because there is a widespread belief that that was Canada's War of Independence because we did essentially better than anyone else, and I say that with no pride. Okay, in fact, some people say that some of the Geneva Conventions were written because of the hideous things our troops did to Germans. Um, I'm just saying what's in the books. I have no opinion about that because it's a century ago. But um, one thing that like Arthur Currie was instrumental in coming up with a lot of um, um, innovations. Like he was the one who's largely responsible apparently for like the creeping artillery barrage. Aside, before that they just like let it rip and then just pound the crap out of everything. But Arthur Currie's practice was to have the barrage move forward and the troops walking behind it. Bloody dangerous if everybody's watches aren't synchronized, though, as they found out several times. Christy's having a bourbon. Which bourbon are you having tonight? Zach says, I heard that I have an ancestor that was in the first and second Modest War. I do not even know what that is, but I'm going to look it up. Country Boy is working on a project, so most of this thing that's probably going to be a leather project. Shift. CôTE-SAINT-LUC saw. Or at least measurements CôTE-SAINT-LUC saw. I forget everything, man. It's atrocious. I forget everything. Jesse says it's like the saying goes, "Don't mess with the large Canadian, don't mess with the Canadians." I would have a lot more sort of fierce pride about our performance if it wasn't something so. I want to live in a world where war is obsolete, and I'm fully aware that I'm saying that in the dying embers of the first quarter of the 21st century, and there's another goddamned trench war going on in Europe. Yeah, anyway, whatever. I'm moving on. Zach, I wish I could hang more often. I still have an alarm set for the streams with Ramson Man as the tone. Jesse says we're all Cobra chickens in disguise. Just saying. Yeah. Oh, Chrissy's having a little Jim Beam action. In the dark, he called it the Sudanese campaigns. Okay. That's a term I know more than. Okay. David Evans, it's the Vandu's. Yeah, so Vandu was a bastardization of the fact that it's the 22nd Regiment, which is Vandu. But yeah, the Vandu's for sure. Like my grandpa, they had to haul him out of the forest and send him off to war, but he came back a monarchist. So I guess they did their magic on him or whatever. The thing is, before he went to war, he didn't. Up until relatively recently in our history, the whole two solitudes thing was an absolute rock solid fact of Canada. And then you have all these guys go to war with each other and get to know each other. And so somebody who sounds like my grandfather's did, French Canadian, thick accent, and somebody who sounds like it's from Picton, Ontario, they spend all this time getting to know each other and totally band of brothers, right? And so it's a lot harder to come back from that kind of a conflict and go back to knee-jerking each other. Hmm, important question. What are you drinking, David Evans? He's drinking water. Russell would not want to be a soldier in World War One. Absolutely not. Me neither. Destiny. They're very hardcore, very hardcore. But like the French Foreign Legion is made up exclusively of foreigners, right? Like none of them are French born. Um, there are a lot of Canadians, French Canadians in the French Foreign Legion. A lot of Americans, a lot of Africans. It's Germans and stuff. Like to join the French Foreign Legion, you must learn French, obviously, because everything happens in French. But um, it's a foreign legion. They're also very badass, of course. Their training is grueling. I guess you guys didn't hear that. This whiskey is this is an excellent whiskey for live streaming because I'm not paying attention to the glass as much as I do when I'm just kicking back with a whiskey. You know, that sounds like my eldest daughter. Um, Hold on, everything just jumped. Oh well, whatever. Excuse me. But anyway, so that's like I really wanted to talk to you guys about Shackleton tonight because like I really want that Lego set. The endurance. Like when I was growing up, we didn't have Lego, right? It was just way too expensive. It really still is though. So I'm really discovering Lego. Well, no, I had Lego. It's just it wasn't central to my life. I was very into Transformers and GI Joes. Um, so in a very real way, I really only discovered Lego through my kids, and so I'm in love with it way later in life than a lot of people are. But, at work, I mentioned Lego, and, like, there's a half dozen men and women who are like, "I gotta show you what I just got this weekend." So it's clear that, Lego has clued into the fact that it's not only kids who are into it, and so they bring out all these sets that are adult specific, and this endurance thing is one of those sets. And I would like to build it, and I would like to have it sitting right here on camera behind me, or like how when I finally set this up, like as a studio, I want to have it as part of the background. $350 though, and it's funny. I just spent that, and I wanted to show you guys my new stage specific earplugs, and I forgot to bring them down. Because like, so this is what 350, 375 actually gets you. Anyway, uh, Zach says, it's a different time when it comes to adjusting when coming home from a war. One to a career, you came home on a ship with a bunch of people who experienced similar things. That takes weeks. Yeah, that's true. Absolutely true. And then pretty soon after that, you're flying home. You know, you're not crossing the ocean with these guys. And sometimes you come home alone, right? Or you come home like four of you or get off the plane in an airport, and there's your wife there. I mean, there's no ticker tape parades anymore. It's a whole different experience now. I used to have this sort of excuse me, not a fantasy because I don't really fantasize, but I just have this daydream of buying a small ass freighter, something around the size of Quest, right? Like 37 meters long kind of thing, like a 50 or 60 footer or 80 or whatever. Um, and just doing the Firefly thing. How many of you guys watched Firefly? You know what? That's gonna be a poll. Start the poll. I have watched Firefly. Yes? No? I will add a what's Firefly option. Excuse me. I will leave that up. Somebody tell me to close that at 10:30 ish. Um, and doing like a Firefly thing, you load up some small cargo here, unload it at the next port, just charge money so that you can afford to keep the ship going, and just live that kind of um, that kind of life. Firefly was probably the best show that was canceled after one season. I absolutely agree. Absolutely. Just give me a second. I just have to say something. Just had to make sure that Cody's not on her phone after 10 p.m. But yeah, Firefly was golden. The movie I did not think was nearly as good. I thought that was just Joss Whedon saying, "No, it's not coming back, so shut up." That's what I think. And part of the reason I love that show is just the idea of just living on this little freighter. I don't love the idea of being constantly on the run from the government, but I love the idea of just living on this scrappy little ship, scrappy little crew, just going from here to there. It's funny how many of the things that I find really transport me in my head are are related to this kind of transient life. Like, I love the explorers, man. I'll watch anything about the explorers. Like, and now I've gotta go and look for a movie, a Kenneth Branagh film about, uh, about Shackleton. But, like, these names mean something to me. Shackleton is, like, just the and it's funny because I actually know one of his, descendants. She lives in Alberta, and I know her through my band, through playing music out there. Um, but these names, they ring like 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 a bell to me. Hearn, Thompson, Shackleton, Scott. Maybe not Franklin, but the thing is, Franklin was a man of his time, right? He was working, he was British, and the British were the owners of the world, and this is how we did things. And if that meant a train full of donkeys with large wooden crates on their back of my supplies and my endless supply of tea and biscuits and marmalade, and we all die, well, that's just, it was a very British thing to do. So, like, I get frustrated thinking about Franklin and all the stupid things that guys like him did, and the price that they and their followers paid for it. But it's important to, like, I keep thinking about this. When I was in university, I have a communications degree. I specialized in filmmaking. You guys know that. Um, you had to know your Aristotle to get in. You had to have read the Poetics. You didn't have to know all of Aristotle, but you really had to know the Poetics, because part of the the interview process that you went through is you would sit there, and it was kinda like a little star jamboree, because you were being interviewed by, like, 3 members of the faculty, like the dean and the blah, 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 and they would just start throwing you questions about Aristotle, right, and about the Poetics. Because at the end of the day, the entire communications industry is based on the Poetics and on Marshall McLuhan. In the same way as much of Western philosophy is a reaction to Kant, right? Much of science is a reaction to Newton. Much of, in communications theory, you got Innes, you got McLuhan, you got Aristotle. And there were these women in I guess girls, I mean, we were kids, we were, like, what, in our late teens, early 20s, so, like, we shouldn't be learning that Aristotle because, he didn't think that women were people kinda thing, and if Aristotle was alive today and had that philosophy, I would absolutely agree, but I do feel that people are a product of their time, and and that is both true, it rings true to me, but it's also troubling because I keep thinking, like, if I was living in Virginia during the slave owning times, can I guarantee that I would be better than that? That I would be part of, you know, the Underground Railroad getting black people to Canada, freedom? Can I guarantee that I'd be that? Like, how many philosophies do we live with today that people 100 years from now or 200 years from now are gonna think we're bloody retrograde, right? And so, like, as frustrating as the Franklin story is, I sort of have to take a step back and think, "Yeah, but that's the time he lived in." We can't always expect people just 'cause they're famous to have been better than the time they lived in. Even though some of the explorers were. So, that every explorer who realized that being very British was going to get him killed, and accordingly followed what the natives said, shows that you can be better than your time. You almost always learn this the hard way though, like, having lost an expedition or 2 before you finally get smartened up. And maybe Franklin just never got that chance. Maybe if he'd been going overland instead of on a ship, he would have had to interface with the Inuit and learn how to do it, and not lose himself and his crew, and look, ships went to the bottom all the time, they were made of wood, and the crush of Arctic or Antarctic ice wins every single time, but, you know? Um, hold on. Wow, Firefly came out when you were a toddler. Okay, alright. Christy, I don't watch TV or movies all I watch is YouTube videos. I kinda feel the same way. I do watch some TV. In some ways, we're in a golden age of TV. We have been for the entire 21st century, and in other ways, it's like, um, I just noticed that my chat disconnected on YouTube, but then it reconnected. That's weird. Um, like, there are some killer shows out now. Killer shows. Even anime is, like, Netflix is doing crazy things with anime. It's there's but I'm not here to tell you to stop watching YouTube because, YouTuber. But I also watch almost exclusively YouTubes, right? I'm trying to keep up with everyone. I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to keep up with everyone who's subscribed to me. I fail miserably some months because like, stuff in life sort of piles up, and I haven't watched YouTube in, like, a week. But yeah, um, David, how's the firework going, Russell? He's trying to get himself a deer right now. Oh, it's hunting season, baby. Yeah. Can you imagine firing up the wood splitter during hunting season? Although I will be shocked if you bag anything. It's warm and it's raining. Shocked. I mean, I do hope you bag an animal and then send me a steak. But, I would be very surprised because I have been skunked in that kind of weather more often than we've been successful in that kind of weather for sure. Um, Zach said, "It's like the trigger warnings on old media warning it's from a different time. You gotta look at that thing through a lens with that area." Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just turn off that part of your head for the and I'm not saying this in any way like, "Oh, geez, can't we just go back to the way things were in the '50s?" No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you are watching something that was made in the '50s, adjust your expectations, you know? You know, come on, man, A Streetcar Named Desire, as close to a perfect show, production as you can come for the time. I could watch it a million times and never, ever be tired of it, you know? Russell says, "For so many years, I wished for a Firefly rebirth, but by now, all the actors are so much older, and it was that special set of actors that made the show so good." Yeah, it was what do you call that, lightning in a bottle? You can't get it back, which is too bad because I would've died for another season, and I didn't like all the characters. Oh, good night, David. Sleep well. Um, oh, you watched Castle, okay. Was that the show where it was like it was Halloween and he had on his Firefly getup and was like, "Cool, cool," and his daughter came in and was like, you know, and he said, "I'm a space cowboy," and she said, "That's so 2008 or something." Am I totally blowing that, or was that something that actually happened? I'm paraphrasing everything, I think, Zach. Stopped by to see the hunters who hunt the property next to me today. They asked me if you were running a chainsaw the last couple of days. They were a bit peeved. "No, you weren't running a chainsaw. You've been live streaming your absolutely silent hunt." Hey, I'm caught up. I'm caught up. I like that. The entire reason I was asking about fire is because I used to daydream of having this mini cargo scow, small ragtag crew, and just living the Firefly life, but obviously on Earth. Uh, Trucker oh, hold on. Zach just rewatched the old Bond movies, and the stable scene in Goldfinger wouldn't even make it to being storyboarded. Oh, I forgot about that. When I used to write, Tabernacle. I used to write, gadget and movie reviews and stuff professionally, and at one point I got, um, 5 Bond movies. They're re-releasing the Blu-rays, like, they had remastered and everything, so I watched all these old Bond movies, and I just loved them. So, like, you'd be watching and thinking, "Oof, really? Oof, oof." Today, that's a little cringy, but man, I just love those old movies, and, um, the old black and white Zorro TV series. I think it was Disney from, like, the early to mid '50s. Loved it. Again, wouldn't be made today. Or parts of it make me think it would be like a Nickelodeon show, you know? Like, cringy, but yeah. Uh, well, I skipped I keep jumping. Trucker is listening, going through the Oregon mountains in the rain, 3 more hours to go. Stay safe, mister. Yes, okay, so that is a scene from Castle, yeah. I saw, like, a little chunk of it on YouTube at some point. Uh, Country Boy says, "Too warm and wet here to even bother going hunting. Nothing is moving. They're all bedded down until after shooting light. Going to be having tag soup again this year." Yeah, yeah, not a good year. I gotta tell you, like, if I was ever gonna go hunting again, I would love a muzzle. Stop, we're not talking about guns. Come on, Jess. Yeah, no smooth roads here either, let me tell you, in a trucker. I live in a province where smooth roads are a foreign concept, absolutely foreign concept. Oh, 6:33. So I will close the, poll, and we will see who owned up to having loved that watched the show. Uh, so 38% did not watch Firefly, 30% did watch Firefly, and 30% didn't know what Firefly was. I kind of feel that the math doesn't quite work out there, but you know, fair enough. Fair enough. I just love that show. And also these days, Joss Whedon's kind of canceled too, right? Because it came out that he was uh, a little abusive on set to his actors, which is something that I would not condone. But it's disappointing because I mean, he brought a lot to TV. You know, I will say that I was a little tired of his like he just kept writing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? Like there was Buffy in Buffy, there was Dollhouse, which was a bunch of Buffys who got their memories wiped, right? And in Firefly, he had a Buffy too, although she also had her mind wiped. And I kind of felt that these characters were him kind of writing about his like masturbatory fantasy, like that's kind of what he thought was hot, and he had the money and backing to play with that, which was disappointing when I kind of twigged onto that because I was like, yeah, I love how he keeps writing these strong, independent women, and then but Buffy wasn't independent. She was physically strong, but needy as hell. And River was like one step above like a slave girl fantasy, right? Because she was mind wiped. She had all these abilities, but didn't know how to control any of it, and needed the help of the people around her. And then Dollhouse was like crazy if you look at Joss Whedon the way I now do. You know, so anyway, River, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I really feel that I fell for Joss Whedon's. Oh, good night, Mister. As I said before, stay safe on the roads on this night of nights. Oh no, this is Jennifer. Oh, I didn't even know you were here. I've been mixing you up with Chris because on this screen, it's like it just shows me the peanut trucker and then an ellipsis. Hi, Jennifer. Good night, Jennifer. Shit. Oh well. Uh, it was a young girl that you didn't like. No, I didn't like how I didn't like it when I realized, or I now believe that he was just masturbating on screen, essentially. You know, through script writing and through directorial choices. You know, it was his geek boy fantasy, and he was living it out essentially, in as far as you can. I just closed the wrong window. It's okay though. Zach Fudge says it's on Disney Plus. I'm on episode 8 and I'm enjoying it a lot. It's such a good time for TV in so many ways. If Netflix would just stop allowing licenses to lapse and taking stuff off, it would be such a good time for TV. Apple TV has some crazy good stuff on it. There's some great stuff on Disney. I wish I was not paying for 4 different services, though. I really do feel, and I've said this before, but I really do feel we've traded in having to buy this cable package for that channel for renting this entire streaming service for these 2 shows. So, you know, whereas it was like this bright new world, now it's just kinda like same old, but more expensive than it was. Hey, Jay Garcia, how you doing? Nice to see you. How's the weather down where you are? Whiskey done, tea done, stream almost done. I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of shows that I could rewatch as often as I did Firefly and still, like, enjoy them and have a great time with them. Like, a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff, but it's that's nowhere near the same kind of thing, right? Those are animated movies from the best animation house in the world, in my opinion. I can rewatch them over and over and over again, especially now that my daughters will also watch them over and over and over again. But, like, it's hard to find something that occupies that Firefly space, you know? Um, Zach Fudge said, "Apparently Dark Crystal was great on Netflix and got canned after 1 season in the fallout of the Cuties fiasco." I didn't know there was a Cuties fiasco. I did not enjoy dude, when I found out that they were putting out a Dark Crystal series, I was all about that because that film was seminal, Russell, for me. It was a big deal. It's a signpost in my journey to being a film buff and wanting to have been a filmmaker. I I could still watch that film a million times, but the show just didn't capture what the film dished out. It didn't hit the same way. It didn't like, the magic wasn't there. It was good. It was, but I didn't love it the way I loved the film, which was too bad. It was very disappointing because of that. Because you can't get over not loving something the way you loved what it came from, right? It makes you judge the thing more harshly, and I think that the Dark Crystal series was judged more harshly because people were looking for that same feeling that they got from the film, and that's just not there. You know, "Hey, honeybee in the house, how are you doing tonight?" Uh, so many great YouTube videos to watch. I barely caught the election here in the States. Well, keep watching the YouTubes. Gloomy night, high 70s. High 70s, so that's like high 20s, I guess? Late 20s? Mm, maybe not high 20s. Okay, so freezing in the old style is 32, right? 90, 89, 90, that's like my pool when it's warm. So 70 is probably like high teens? Like around 18 degrees, maybe? Okay. Everyone's saying hi to, Mr. Honeybee. Christian is telling me that there's 19 minutes left. It's because Christian wants me to have another whiskey, but I'm not gonna do it because I have to be on my game at work tomorrow. Got a video to put up. Um, what's Honeybee doing tonight? You working on something? You having a little whiskey with us? You in a good mood these days? Jail units and not commie units. Hey, you know what's funny about that? Um, the freedom units have been based on commie units for this whole century so far. You know that, for, like, there used to be, like, an official kilogram in France, and I think there was another one, like, in New York or somewhere, maybe it was Switzerland or something, and there was, like, an official meter, and there's an official and now all the metric measurements are based on the spin of a cesium atom, and the official inch is now worth I don't quite remember what the current I did a, podcast episode on this, on how the inch is since the 1950s and 1960s, the inch has been based on the metric system and defined as exactly 25.4 millimeters. And so, like, all of the imperial measurements are now based on metric measurements, which I find hilarious. I think it's so cool. Honeybee is just here to lurk post homework and evening, bit tired from the college labs today. Synthesis of hydrated alarm alum crystals. I I do love me the science, but because I never got the math, I never got to do the science. Oh, Zach, yes. Hold on. The Willow show was so bad they pulled it from Disney Plus and can't be found anywhere. That's because it was garbage. I tried, man, I tried, but it was just like young adults. Pith. Pith? Pith? No, I've used the wrong word. P p there's a word I'm looking for, but phew, nope. I really hated it, and I wanted to love it. I wanted to love that show. I just couldn't do it. It came across like one of those kinda mid-budget young adult fantasy shows, and I just couldn't do it. Nope. Russ says I got 17 minutes for 2 more whiskeys. Yeah, right. 15 minutes now. Who says 3? Pound. I've still got a little bit of this strand left. No, I do not. Um, yes, Willow with Val Kilmer. Great film. I loved it. Loved it. Has anyone here seen Krull? It's just a little older than Willow. Maybe actually it might be 10 years older than Willow. But it was sort of the same kinda that was an '80s fantasy film, I believe. Was it '80s? Am I gonna look it up? I only ever saw it once, but 1983. Crow is a 1983 British science fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Yates and distributed by Columbia Pictures. It stars Ken Marshall, Lizette Anthony, Freddie Jones, Francesca Annis, and Alan Armstrong. Liam Neeson and Robbie Coltrane, still early in their careers. It feels like there was a time when there was something notable in fantasy and sci-fi happening all the time, you know? But yeah, I loved Willow. Maybe I'll watch Willow again this week. Maybe I'll introduce my youngest to Willow. Can't beat that film. The TV show was just such an epic just letdown, though. YouTube is, to be fair, says Zach, Willow only exists because Lucas couldn't get the rights to do Tolkien. Yeah, still though, still solid work. And apparently, um, Indiana Jones only exists because Spielberg, I believe, was in talks with Hergé to do a Tintin film when Hergé died. So, which is why the first um, Indiana Jones, what was it called? Raiders of the Lost Ark. In many parts of it, looks and feels like a Tintin book. Okay, bonsoir tout le monde. Until next live, bisous. Good night, Destiny. Sleep well. Have yourself a great rest of the week. I mean, there's only no, I was gonna say there's only 3 minutes left, but no, there's more than that. But yeah, Zach, I still think that Willow was solid, absolutely solid. And if you think about it, the animated Hobbit and Lord of the Rings films were not nearly as solid as Willow. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, they were fine in their own right. Come on, spider, go away. Stupid spiders. Where was I? I was talking about something, but anyway, something. But anyway, yeah. Um, should we do another episode about one of these great explorers someday? Tom Selleck, hold on. I'm waiting for that comment on YouTube to appear in this streaming, whatever it's called. Tom Selleck was supposed to play Indy, but Magnum conflicted. Could you imagine? I think that film would not have aged as well as it did with Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones. I would go to the mats to defend that statement. Absolutely. Just reminded me of this episode of Danger Bay where Dr. Roberts' daughter's got a friend over and she's like watching him do some work or something, and she said, Dr. Roberts, I think you're even more handsome than Tom Selleck. And then Roberts is like, well, thank you. And then, camera focuses in on his troubled face, and then it cuts to um, whatever the adverts are called, commercials. Cuts to commercial. Man, I haven't thought about Danger Bay in years. I wonder if that show is as good as I seem to remember it being, or if I was just warm towards it because it took place like at the Vancouver Aquarium, and I love that place. You know, I seem to remember it being a good show though. Russell says that Danger Bay had some mature themes. Yep, it did. I mean, we. It's shocking when you think, oh, no, you could be shocked by what some of the mature themes were that were explored by certain shows at a time when we thought that shows were a whole lot more innocent. I'm thinking about. Do you guys remember that show Maude? It had it starred B. Arthur. And, like, she did an episode on, like, abortion, like, in the '70s. Like, we think of TV as just being this mindless muck, and look, it's a cold medium, right? It's not a warm medium or a hot medium like film is, right? The brain doesn't engage with TV the way it does with film or theater or whatever. But still, some shows really, really try. Even, man, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, every now and again, they had an episode that dealt with some shit, man. Dealt with some shift, man. Man, I haven't seen Little House on the Prairie in a long time either. I remember one episode where the wife, whatever her name was, thought that the husband, whatever his name was having an affair because he kept going and doing work at another woman's house on the prairie. And what she didn't realize or know was that he was working to buy a set of dishes from the other woman, because they were nice dishes and he wanted to bring them home to his family. Yeah, Bea Arthur was on Golden Girls as well, for sure. That was later though. And Golden Girls also dealt with some crazy stuff, for sure. In fact, I find that in some ways TV is a little more craven now than it was back then. I think it's because there's so much more money and investment in TV now, and it's become like venture capitalists own studios because that has worked out so well for video games, you know? Yeah. There was a time when, like, there was a lot of adventurous stuff happening on TV. Star Trek first interracial kiss back in the '60s. First lesbian kiss on, whatever was the show with Dax on it, you know? Or first of these in primetime TV. Betty White was the best on everything she's ever been in, dude. Absolutely. That woman was a national treasure, international treasure, for sure. Waiting for that to appear so that I can remember on Little House on the Prairie when the guy's wife and daughter died in a house fire. Watched that as a kid in the scene where she's on the upper floor with the baby in her arms, bashing the window out with her hand and screaming. I do not remember that. Traumatize you. Yeah, that scene is burned into your brain. I think that if I'd seen that as a kid, it would be burnt into mine as well, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't all G.I. Joe and Transformers and, like, Strawberry Shortcake on the TV, that's for sure. I thought I was about to cough again, but I didn't. How many people we still got kicking back with us here? 18 people watching. Crazy. You guys are hanging out to the bitter end, which is 6 minutes away. Yeah, I think, I wonder how many of these shows, if I just watched an episode or 2 of again, how many of them I would still think are great shows, and how many was just, look, I was young, you know? I wonder. Like, Transformers sure as hell doesn't stand up. G.I. Joe doesn't stand up. Um, but, like, I rewatched an episode of The Beachcombers relatively recently, and the nostalgia is so strong there that I feel that show stands up, even if maybe it doesn't. Oh, holy crap, Zach. You stumbled across a TV airing of Clockwork Orange as a kid and scarred yourself something fierce. That's a strong ass movie, and, TV cut out some more disturbing bits for sure. Absolutely, but yeah, that was a big ticket show, film. Why did I just get a message? Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Like, now that we're 5 minutes from the end of the show, what? One thing that Zach that sort of did the same to me as a kid was, I came out of bed, like, way after bedtime. It must have been, like, 10 o'clock or something, and my mom had, the TV on, and it was CBC probably, because we only had, like, 3 channels, and it was a music video show, and the video playing was, what was it called? Experiment 5 or Experiment 4 or something by Kate Bush. What was it called? Experiment 4, okay, and, if I remember correctly, the theme of the video was about them doing experiments with sound, and they're experimenting on prisoners or soldiers or something, and, like, this beautiful, like, woman was floating around, like, generated by sound, and then they changed the frequency, and she turned into this hideous beast, and then the experiment goes crazy and just boom, goes out everywhere. I guess it was about untrammeled science or something, but I was a kid and I saw this late at night, and I remember that video today. You have a VCR tape of Clockwork Orange. Jim, that is some old school stuff. Yeah, Russell also saw Clockwork Orange when you were pretty young. Yeah, yeah, it was, look, it was a big deal. The book was a big deal. The 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 film was a big deal. Probably made Malcolm McDowell's career, actually. Um, and, like, it they wouldn't do it with the same nuance today as they did back then. Like, film has no nuance anymore, right? They don't take a chance on films anymore because there's so much money involved, and it's all investment bankers now that, like, "Let's make a film." Okay, what were the last 3 films that did absolute gangbusters at you know, um at the cinema. Okay, we'll remake those, or we'll do a prequel to those, or we'll do a sequel to those. You're never gonna see, well, you will almost never see a big ticket studio production of a film of that kind of vision again, most likely. It's all gonna be little indie guys doing the artistic films. The big tickets is just gonna be more fricking Marvel Universe or, another misguided Star Wars film, and I do love me some Star Wars, you know? Um, Jim says, "My traumatizing TV moment was seeing Barnabas Collins with skeletons on Dark Shadows. I was screaming all the way back to my nap time." The End of Time Bandits sat with me for a long time in a dark, kind of unpleasant way. But imagine having made a film that people think of decades later that it made an impact on them. It's powerful, man. There's real power to filmmaking in that way, or TV, or imagery. Some photographs live on forever. Oh, we're at 11 o'clock. All right, folks, I'm gonna go to bed so that I don't suck at work tomorrow. Hold on a second. Zach saw The Whole Nine Yards on TV when you were 6. One scene in particular sticks with me. Which scene is that? I mean, I've seen that film, but I'm not sure which scene you're talking about. Um, let's talk about it next time. Uh, Good night, everyone. I would like everybody to have a terrific week. Between now and next week, everybody, please stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Good night.